Some of these young ladies are very respectful, introspective. I must ask, what convinces a woman that competing in business with men is more important than nurturing the next generation? If you'd like to respond.
That's a good question. I think that, like I said earlier, I just have a very individual view, and I think that maybe it's kind of a hedonistic view in this sense, but people should be able to do whatever maximizes their own happiness. And if having a career and being a business owner is like maximizes my happiness more so than...
You don't believe that, though. You don't believe people should be able to do whatever they want to
Okay, not whatever.
Happiness.
They have to concede to some things in the social construct with the government.
Then why can't they concede
contract.
to let us make a social contract with the government that requires you to take care of your children and nuclear family, and that's what we move to as a society
because that's based on the Bible.
Harm.
Because that's based on the Bible. It's not...
No, I'm talking about minimizing harm. I'm talking about minimizing harm.
There's no okay, can you quantify for me how much harm is caused by the nuclear family being broken apart?
Well, yeah, I can give you tons of metrics. I just went over a shitload. You want to go through them again?
Yeah, sure.
Let's start with the metric of divorce rates increasing, the amount of women that are on the pill. Let's talk about...
But you can't prove that those are being caused by feminism.
We can. We can look at policies going back to when the 19th Amendment was ratified, and we can see who pushed for no-fault divorce, which was feminist. We can see who pushed for the pill, which was feminist. We can actually, we can track all of this data. In fact, the CDC does
What's
track
so bad about the pill?
A lot of these data. Well, I think that the pill might be one of the reasons that the mental illness rate in women is so high, because it fucks their hormones all up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the milk you drink doesn't fuck your hormones all up? Don't even ask me.
I don't drink a lot of milk, but... I can understand that, but there's laws in the books that you can't drink raw milk.
Okay, but I'm saying there
used to be that people could,
anywhere.
but now there's laws saying you can't. And yes, you're right. There are hormones inside of all types of food that can fuck your hormones up for sure, but not nearly as bad. And that's over time. Plastics will do the same thing. We were talking about that earlier. I agree with that. That's one thing we can find common ground on, right? Foods can have all sorts of hormones, antibiotic-resistant pathogens in them. But that doesn't change the fact that mental illness likely is increasing in women due to the fact that so many are on birth control.
You can't just take a fact and put it next to another fact and say that one causes the other. Where's the reasoning? There's no argument being made. That one is not valid premises for the argument.
Well, we'll try this then. Do you think, when it comes to reproduction, that the pill has decreased reproduction in women?
Has decreased. I couldn't tell you, but it is a preventative measure.
You don't think it's reduced reproduction?
Yes, it has.
It has.
If every woman...
Well, I don't know. That's just a correlate. You can't just put one thing next to another thing and then make this bold claim that correlation makes causation, right?
If every woman was to have been taken off of birth control from the beginning of its creation and had sex all those times until now without the birth control, there would be a lot more babies born.
But that's still just a correlate, right?
I just explained to you how one causes the other because the birth control literally prevents the pregnancy.
But all causes just use strong correlates, all of them. Just so you know.
Go back to what you were saying. What was the point you were making? You said the pill.
The point that I was making was that the nuclear family and the damage which has been caused by us getting away from the nuclear family can be quantified. And then I was explaining the ways in which it can be.
Keep going.
So one of the things that I brought up was mental illness in women and the fact that so many women who are on antidepressants especially, they're able to correlate that with the fact that they're on birth control pills.
How do you know that they're not depressed because of outside reasons?
Because they take them off the birth control pills and they become less depressed. That's how.
Oh, yeah? Do you have a study for that one?
No, did you have a study for the correlatory that you just gave? No, but it makes sense, right?
But yours, okay, that's fine.
But
any
yes,
other
there is data.
quantifiable
There is
factors?
data for that.
Any other quantifiable factors?
Oh, there's tons. There can be genetics involved. If you come from a single family household, that seems to have more of an impact on girls, unless the girls are raised by the fathers. And then if they're raised by the fathers instead of their mothers, it seems that their mental
What is your
illness
evidence
decreases.
for the claim that a single family influences girls more heavily? I mean, a single parent family.
because single parent, well, that's not my claim. So my claim was in a single parent family where there's a woman, single mom who's running the family, the outcomes for the children, including mental illness, seem to be worse than if there's a single dad. The outcomes still aren't good. They're not like optimal. It's not what you'd like to see. They seem to be better from a single father household when it comes to mental illness than a single mom household when it comes to mental illness in the kids.
It's because single father households tend to make more money.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, it's true.
Because
look it up.
That is true.
Single father households
but
make more
you're
money
leaving
than
a
single mother
big
households.
variable out of there, which is that the state aid, which comes in to single mothers along with child support, will often compensate for that income gap. This would include food money, free health care.
Trust
all
me,
of
I
those
know all
things.
about it.
Yeah, but I mean, it does.
But-
it does compensate. So if a man makes $4 on average more per hour than a single mother, that will disqualify him from potentially hundreds of dollars in food aid plus free health care on Medicaid.
Yes, but
So
the
that's a
reason
bad
why
argument.
that state aid exists so heavily is because historically men have discouraged women from working and have encouraged them to be mothers. They're less capable to work in high earning
Well, I'm not
jobs.
even
Therefore,
beating
they
up-
need more
I'm
welfare
not
when
even
their
beating
husbands
up the
die or
welfare.
leave.
I'm not even beating up the welfare. Men can qualify for the same welfare if they make less. I'm pointing out that your argument that the reason there's less mental illness inside of the children is because mommy doesn't make as much money as daddy would when it's clearly compensated
False.
for by state aid.
Would you say a Section 8 apartment is the same as an apartment paid for by daddy's salary?
Yeah, but
No.
daddy, but here's the thing.
No,
most-
in the neighborhood that they're living in? Ooh, that's rough.
Okay, so most of the men who would be involved with a woman who's in Section 8 housing would also be in Section 8 housing.
But that's not
It is.
what I said, that the men, I didn't say that they were together. I said
Yeah, I
that
know,
men
but
tend to
they-
be higher earners.
Yeah, that's true. But most of the women who are single moms are not living in Section 8 housing. And the other thing to look at, not even close are they living, most single moms living in Section 8 housing, not even in the same universe. True, they could be living in more poverty conditions, maybe barely making ends meet for their 3-bedroom apartment or their 2-bedroom apartment for their kids. But the dads have to deal with the same exact thing. It's just that if they are earning more, then mothers are compensated for that lack of earning
From the government.
Through,
do you think
through
that
Medicaid
do you
and
think
food
that
stamps.
Medicaid is as high quality as
Medicaid
private
is,
health insurance?
Yes, Medicaid's some of the best insurance on planet Earth, along with Medicare. It's fantastic.
Then why don't we universalize it?
Because then basically a subset of the population would have to be paying for everybody's shit, which right now still not optimal that we have to pay for everybody's shit. That's why, because you can't afford it. Because universalization in Canada did not work out very well, and that's why people go to hospitals which are privately owned, even though they're not supposed to. They just turn a blind eye so that people can get their health care. That's why. But that aside, moving back to this, I'm not going to let you evade this. Your claim was that single moms make for more mentally ill children because of this earning gap.
I didn't say that.
You did
particularly.
because, and
I said it could be a factor.
no. What happened was I said 1 in 4 with the single mom. You
Okay,
said
then
the
I can-
reason for that is because they make a lot less money, but that's not really true.
Then I can backpedal. That's not the only reason. I think that likely it could be one of many reasons
Okay, what are some other reasons?
that children coming from a single mother household are more likely to be mentally ill.
Yeah.
Let's see. I bet they wonder why their dad's not there.
Wouldn't they wonder why their mom's not there if they were with their dad?
I guess that's a valid point. Let me think a little harder. Let's see. Do you have an explanation?
Well, yeah. So essentially, it has to do with who you bring in. So what happens is with single moms, they tend to bring in step parents far more than single fathers do far earlier. And they don't work out. Those relationships don't work out. And so the
That's a
rates,
generalization.
yeah, because
Okay,
saying
but continue.
saying 1 in 4 women suffer from a mental health issue. So there's a mental health crisis. The mental health crisis is a generalization, but it is still true.
Okay.
So in this case, yes, they bring in stepdads and stepparents, And so the children are more likely to deal with some forms of abuse and destabilization, whereas in single father households, it doesn't happen nearly as much. That's why.
Okay, that could be a verifiable reason.
Like in your situation, right? Did you have like step parents?
My dad was the only one who saw women after. My mom did not see a single person.
In your
there's the
situation?
proof. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean,
It's a generalization.
Of course, that can happen. But
And
even-
aren't men more likely to seek out fertile mates than women are?
Yeah.
So
Well, no, it's not that they're more likely to seek out fertile mates. What we were discussing before was signs of what men would find attractive. And the reason I said they find youth attractive is because of fertility. So that's probably one of the reasons they find youth attractive.
okay, but what I'm saying is like, I don't think there's like I don't know, you'd have to pull up a statistic, but is there really a rate at which one sex brings in a step parent more than the other?
Yeah, there is.
It's the women.
Yeah, we can look at the remarriage or the remarriage stats so that we can understand that. And then
That would be inaccurate though if it was just the remarriage stats.
yeah, but I was going to give you more. So
Okay.
you can look at that. That's one metric that you can look at it. There's also polling done as to who have live-in boyfriends, who doesn't. Pew Research has a bunch of this. I don't remember what the polling agencies are. Everyone which has covered it, but yes, it is true. At least it's true as we know that women do tend to bring in more step parents.
Can you give me the point difference on those two statistics?
I can't off the
You
top of
don't
my
even have
head.
an estimate, like
A point? You mean a
like
point
10
difference?
10 percentage points, or how much is the
I don't
difference?
know. I don't know what the distinction is, but it's significant. It's a significant distinction.
Okay.
So it's enough for there to be a deviation. So I mean, probably 15%, 20% more, I would guess.
So how is that the women's fault though? Because they're trying to find another provider for the home that you think is an important part
Yeah,
of
but
their.
they shouldn't have
you're
left
you're
their
saying they
original
should grow up in a
provider.
two-parent home. What if the original provider left? And you're saying the kid
Yeah, but
should
I'm
grow up
saying
in a
that
two-parent
most divorces
home.
don't happen because the provider left. They happen because the woman initiates a divorce
Most,
due to
but not
irreconcilable.
all. What
Yeah, but
about what are the women who get left going to do then?
If we were just dealing with exceptions, we wouldn't.
We're
have
not
a
dealing with just exceptions.
But
We're
that's an
dealing with
exception.
a large portion of the.
That's
no,
not a large portion.
No, men and women are individuals. Stop making it so based on your gender. Only women can break things up. Only women can
Didn't
leave
say
the
that.
relationship. That's not true.
And
Men
it's not
leave
what I said.
all the time. Yeah, but you're saying that it's an exception, which is false. You can't say exception.
is.
It's sometimes one thing happens and sometimes
Okay.
other things happen.
So here's the thing.
When people
you
are
say
incompatible,
sometimes,
it could be
sure.
chosen by
so
either
I'll
side.
rephrase it the best way that I can then. Mostly women are doing this and not men. Mostly women are leaving marriages and not men. Mostly women. At the college level, it's almost all women. Then men are the exception because women are initiating 90% of the time. And then if we break those stats down along religiosity, we might come up with some different numbers. But yes, it's mostly women breaking up the home. And
How
yes,
do you know that's not men's fault?
well, because we can ask these women why the divorce happened. And we can look at court documents for the reasons that they put for the divorce. And we can run different polls where we're talking to them. And what we find is the same thing that was pulled up the other night here on whatever. He was a perfect guy. I just got fucking sick of him. I don't like him anymore. There was no abuse. He didn't do anything wrong. I just don't fucking like him
Is she not
anymore.
entitled to make that choice if she doesn't like her
Well,
husband anymore?
I think that if you put your own self's entitlement above that of your children, in order to have access to their father in a two-parent household, you're setting them up for failure. And that's what we see in the stats. That you should be, if you make the commitment to make children with him, and he's not abusing you, okay, and he's not beating you up, and he's not abandoning you, he's not doing all the bad things, then no, I think you should put your children before your own happiness. I think you have a duty and obligation to do so.
Aren't the children being exposed to the unhappiness of your marriage?
Well, that depends. It completely and totally depends. Aren't your children, though, even if they were exposed to the unhappiness of your marriage, if you're looking at the statistics of how much abuse happens external to that, when these divorces happen and the outcomes on children in these single-parent households, wouldn't it still be optimal for them to deal with mom and dad? They don't always talk to each other, but they're in the same house. They take good care of us. and she prioritized the happiness of us over herself.
I don't think children are that capable. That sophisticated
Not only
line
that,
of
but
thinking.
the thing is,
but you're putting the onus of the responsibility on the female, which is just
because they're the
not
ones leaving.
correct. What
They're
if?
the ones leaving.
God,
That's
but
why.
What if it's because they don't like how the man is treating the children?
That's not what they're reporting.
You think they're reporting completely accurate every single time?
Not every single time, but accurate enough. Accurate enough for us to get a pretty clear picture on why they're leaving. And they're not leaving because dad's beating up the kids or
In
beating
some
up
cases
her.
they are, and those aren't just
In some
exceptions.
cases,
Those are not just
and
exceptions.
in those cases,
They're
I would
huge parts of the
encourage.
statistic.
In those cases, I would encourage those women to leave those men if they're getting beat up or things like that. They should be leaving those men. But if all that was happening is women were leaving abusive men, okay, fine. You wouldn't see this type of mass decadence in society. This would not be the issue. The single mother households are not reporting that they're leaving or filing for these divorces due to anything other than self-fulfillment. Not because of abuse, not because of drugs, and not because he's leaving the home, not even because they're shirking their financial responsibilities a lot of the time. So it's like marriage is work, and yes, you should probably sacrifice your own happiness for the happiness of your children. Yes, I think that a woman has a responsibility to do that, and so does a man.
I'd agree, but what are the implications on that argument?
That we would probably end up with much better, more stable nuclear family households, and the reproduction rate would probably skyrocket, and women would probably not have to work nearly as much as they do right now, and probably be way fucking happier and less mentally ill. That's what I would say would probably be the extension of that.
But that's not all because of feminism.
That's all got its roots in feminism, yeah. All of
No,
it.
I'd say a lot of it has its roots in the patriarchy.
Which things?
Well, first of all, feminism was made to begin with to counteract the patriarchy.
That was the rhetoric.
So there you go. You could say feminism would have never happened if there was never a patriarchy and we started with an egalitarian society, but that wouldn't have been possible because we hadn't invented guns yet and men had a monopoly on the use of force.
You can't
or
have
whatever.
an egalitarian society. That's why we went through that whole thing in the beginning showing you why you can't.
We can't have an egalitarian society?
You can't. Because men have the monopoly on force. That's why we agreed
disagreed
to it.
on that, though. Like,
No,
I
we
still
really
think that
didn't.
women can have force. I mean,
They can use force to a limited degree, but they cannot enforce. They'll never be the enforcers, and so they're never going to be equal with men. It's not ever going to happen. There's no place on planet Earth where women are like, you know what? Barbara, grab the Uzi. We're going to enslave these fucking assholes right now. It's never happened. It's never going to happen. But there has been the case where they've been like, hey, Abdul, grab the AK. And yes, the women have all been enslaved. That has happened.
yes, but I'm saying in today's society, women have more influence on non-physical types of ways through politics and things like
Yeah,
that.
I don't disagree, but ultimately they only have that sway if men allow them to through enforcement. And if men collectively, because they've had this before.
But it's not men
they had it
allowing
in
them
Iran.
to.
They had it in Iran. They had women's liberation in Iran until the Iranian, and they were in politics and they had sway until the Iranians went, no, and took all that shit away. And they can't do anything about it. But you can have a revolution inside of a nation by men. That's done all the time. And they're able to take rights or give rights. That's just the way the world works. And one of the blind spots of feminism is, I don't know why, but they can't seem to see that. They can't seem to see that this perpetual egalitarianism is worthless because you can never really achieve it anyway. So I don't know why they're striving towards it so
Why
hard.
can't you get as close to it as possible?
Well, you can try to get as close to whatever you want as possible, but these outcomes that we're seeing on your pathway there certainly don't seem great. It doesn't seem like it was a great idea to wreck the nuclear family. That seems like a really fucking bad idea. And they did. It doesn't seem like it's a good idea to try to make men and women compete in the workforce. That seemed like a really fucking bad idea. These are not good ideas for society, and they haven't worked out very well.
But it's like most of these are on the basis of your objective, or not objective, your subjective morality. Like, you think that, like, what, it's so much worse because those children are coming out mentally ill because they have single mothers? Maybe they're way more able to take on opportunities with confidence or something like that because they are less prone to being submissive because they didn't have a father in the home.
So
they act more masculine.
So more mentally ill kids?
I'm saying that the things that you the problems that you have with feminism it's because we're getting farther from the patriarchy, right?
Yeah, and it's leading to really bad outcomes for everybody, including the women.
So during the patriarchy, it must have been really good. Like during the big part of the patriarchy, like way back when.
It's been pretty good for most women. Yeah, it's been pretty good.
So when
It's been really hard on men, but it's been pretty good for women. Almost every place you look for the equalization between the two, men have had it basically way rougher than women.
was that not their own choice? If they're the enforcers, they could have made it so that the women are the ones who have to do all of that shit.
They did not allow women to participate in the political process,
Yeah.
and thus protected women and utilized women for what their role was, which was to take care of children.
Who said that was their role? God?
The necessity of what is enforcement. So they can't enforce. They could not drive the wolves away at night, literal wolves. You know, there used to actually be real wolves that would kill people at night in the countryside. Not a joke.
Holy shit. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, you might think that this is, tongue in cheek, but the world was a much more dangerous place. And women relied on men. Men did not rely on them for protection, and they still have to. They just don't realize that they have to yet.
Well, now that we live in a society that has institutions that have power
There was
because
institutions
people
of
have
power
given
then.
them power.
Oh,
No,
you mean
there
like
wasn't.
kings? You mean like the church? You mean like
That didn't,
the millions
they
of
didn't
institutions?
guarantee rights the same way that our institutions do now.
Your
So-
institutions do not guarantee rights.
yes, they do.
Your
Because
rights don't even exist. And if a king, you say a king can't guarantee
if
a
they can be
right.
enforced, then they exist.
Okay, well then, if that's the case, then you had tons of rights under kings.
Okay, that's not what I meant. But what was the original point that I was making?
The original point that we were making was about the nuclear family and how you want to see more mentally ill children because that means that they can take on more responsibility.
I didn't necessarily say that, but not a bad take on my part from you rephrasing my argument. I mean, what's wrong with overcoming mental illness? I mean, I think that could help a person have a lot of empathy for other people.
So, if it is the case that you say, what's wrong with having to surmount a challenge? Would you say that to an SA victim? What's wrong with being SA'd? After all, it could actually make you a much better person that you overcame the fact that you were SA'd. Does that make sense to you?
I would not say that to them.
You would not say that to them.
But it's not the same thing.
Okay, but it is. You're just saying that it could make you a better person that you have a mental illness and you're able to overcome or deal with it.
So should she have aborted the kid then? So it wouldn't have to be born with mental illness?
How would you ever make that determination?
You just said 1 in 4. That's more than just an exception.
Not born with. I didn't say they're born with mental illness.
But they're going to develop it based on their
Yeah, but
familial
there's no way to
circumstances, according to
determine that.
you.
There's no way to determine.
Exactly. There's no way to determine where the mental illness came from.
No.
Would
There's
you
no
look
way
at
to
that? So it could have been
determine
genetic.
which children
it could
will
have been
have
from
it.
anything,
No.
any other factors besides
So
that.
dumb. There's no way to determine which children will have it. So not all children from single parents develop mental illness. Not all of them do. So it's impossible to determine which ones will. That's my point. Not that there still won't be 1 in 4 children with mental illness, just that you will not be able to make the determination which ones are. How could you ever do that? I couldn't even think of how that would even be possible.
Okay, you can't, but okay. So here's what we've gotten so far.
The nuclear family's bad.
Feminists have destroyed the nuclear family, and that's causing all the children to be mentally ill.
No, that has caused the workforce to require a two-worker household. That has taken mothers out of the home to raise their children. That has caused a massive spike in divorces. The list kind of goes on and on. I listed a ton of things which feminism is the root cause of, and feminism has.
What is the root cause of feminism?
Occultism.
Patriarchy.
Occultism.
Patriarchy.
Occultism.
Feminism would have never. You admitted earlier that feminism would not have existed if not to reverse the patriarchy, and you just said that
no.
feminism is the root cause of all of these
me go back to
issues
my first note, I'll
because
show
we're
you.
trying too hard to reverse the oppression that you've put onto us.
So my first note was asking you: is not an entailment of feminism going to be, if it is to resist the patriarchy, that there is a patriarchy? Answer is yes. So I'm just looking at your entailment. But patriarchy is not what caused feminism. Occultism is what caused feminism. Occultism from the
patriarchy,
Protestant Church specifically.
the existence of patriarchy allowed the conditions for feminism to exist.
Okay.
If society had been more egalitarian from the start, I'm not saying completely egalitarian, but if society had been more egalitarian from the start, where each individual was already able to choose, do I want to take care of the kids or do I want to work? Let me go find a mate who's the opposite, not based on the gender, but just based on individual, like their inclinations in life, then I don't think women would be as
Yeah, but you're
hateful of men.
That's really funny that you bring this up. You're saying that feminism.
Lath donated $200. It really is crazy how privilege is invisible to people who have it. She has no idea how dangerous environment was long time now. Even now, no one is going to provide her security other than men.
That's correct.
Thank
That's
you,
Long time
Latham.
going to
now.
be true. But
Continue on.
anyway, what you're saying is this. This is actually your argument. I'll give it back to you. You're saying patriarchy didn't exist, then women would not have to fight for the fucked up conditions that we find ourselves in after they resisted the patriarchy. Brilliant argument. Genius. Love it.
No,
but
I
that's your
said
argument.
women wouldn't have to fight the fucked up circumstances that the patriarchy put them in.
And they started with more egalitarianism, right? And don't we have more egalitarianism now than we did under the patriarchy? And we find ourselves in these fucked up conditions, which means if we had egalitarianism then, those
were-
would have been worse than the patriarchy
We were
because it
in
is now.
fucked up conditions before too.
What?
It's just
What were
different
the fucked
ways.
up conditions?
Well, I mean, women were just all tied down to one outcome, and they couldn't vote.
No, they weren't
Personally,
tied
I
down
would-
to one
I would
outcome.
love my daughters to be able to do whatever the fuck they want.
So let me ask you this. If we could guarantee, let's just say we could guarantee that children would end up with way better outcomes in society. We could guarantee it, right? If parents stayed together, or even better, let's phrase it this way. We could guarantee that children will have better outcomes in society if women don't have the right to vote. Would you take away the right of women to vote then?
No.
No. If we could guarantee that the outcomes for mental illness would greatly reduce if you took away the right to women to vote, would you take away the right for women to vote?
No.
If you could guarantee that women would be far more secure and actually much, much, much happier if you took away their right to vote, would you take away the right
That
to vote?
would never happen.
If you could guarantee that they would be happier if they could not vote, would you take away the right to vote?
That would never happen.
No, answer my question.
That I don't believe it would ever happen.
Okay, if you thought that if the case could be made that their happiness would greatly increase because their mental illness decreases if you took away their right to vote, would you do that?
It's not about happiness. You're doing the hedonist thing on me.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it's about individual choice and values, not hedonism.
But hedonism is the outcome.
I'm saying you're
So what I'm asking you ultimately is this, I'll condense it. Would you take away women's rights to vote if it led to, generally speaking, better societal outcomes?
that's not what would happen though. And
But if it were to happen, that just generally societal outcomes got better, would you take away the right to vote?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't, I know. And so this is the distinction between our moral systems, is that I believe that you live in contradiction and that the right to vote, this right that you perceive, or the 19th Amendment, this type of thing, that even if we could guarantee that the outcomes were better if it was gone, you would still insist that it was there. And I think that that's the case with abortion. I think that that's the case with probably most of your beliefs, because that's feminist beliefs. Like, for instance, if we could guarantee that women would get far less venereal diseases and would have far less problems in society if we could criminalize premarital sex, would you do it?
I wasn't listening to your question, but one of those is an
Well,
ideology.
I'm not going to debate with you.
Okay,
if you're not
repeat then.
listening.
I'm sorry. Well, it's because I was thinking of what I was going to say next. My fault for being a slow woman. You can repeat your question if
Okay,
you'd like.
I'll repeat the question, and I'll make it even simpler. What I'm saying to you is this: if we could make a law which curtailed female promiscuity, meaning it was criminal for both men and women to have premarital sex, and that led to better outcomes for society, would you do it?
No.
No. So, I mean, ultimately, for you, the hedonism and pure selfism is the most important value, not individualism.
It's an emphasis on empathy and individual human rights.
That's not empathy. That
Yes,
would
it
be the
is. It's
opposite of
empathy for the
empathy.
individual, because your ideology is not based on empathy. It's based purely on subjectivism through the Bible and religious.
I haven't offered a
truths.
single biblical argument. I'm just purely
Almost-
operating off of
almost
hedonistic.
all of your arguments
I'm
are
literally
biblical.
going off of this. The worldview is utilitarianism. Utilitarianism being harm. This comes from Mill, who says that harm is a physicality which exists inside of the norms of politics. Individualism, enlightenment. I'm going off of your worldview, which I wrote down and repeating back.
Like
Have not
I
made
said at the beginning before
a
I told you
single
everything, that I
biblical
could not
argument.
fully describe my worldview with just random ideological things, and you are already putting me in a box from that point. I can just believe what I believe without having to classify it.
That's true. You can, right? But ultimately, it's incoherent and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And when you say, well, wait, you're coming at me with a biblical worldview. No, I'm just giving you back your own worldview. I'm literally I just ran an entire internal critique showing you that ultimately, if we reduce all of these issues to outcomes for society, you would still not curtail behaviors like promiscuity, divorce. You wouldn't curtail any of these things, even if it led to better outcomes for children.
Because
which
that's
is
like
not
eugenics, basically.
That is not utilitarianism.
Isn't this like okay, I see. Well, you're right, then.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm good. Brian?
I got some more stuff. Actually, something that just came from the questions that you were asking her. So Andrew, you asked her if outcomes were to be better for women if they couldn't vote. Your answer was
Their answer was she wouldn't take them away.
I would still allow them the right to vote.
Right.
right. Even if under women not being able to vote, the outcomes would be better, you still wouldn't opt for that.
It's the same argument as don't you
No, just
believe
answer-
people
just-
have like free choice?
No, but
even if they can choose the wrong outcomes, people should be able to choose their own life path.
I don't believe in free choice, believe in free will.
Okay, then yeah.
Free will
But-
is not choice.
So my question is though, and you said no, you would not do that, even though it would lead to better outcomes for women, correct?
Yes.
If it led to better outcomes for women, for men to not be able to vote, would you be in favor of that?
No.
Okay, that's fair.
No, I figured she'd be consistent with
Okay, got it. We have a couple chats. Why don't we read those? So we have GR Gracie. By the way, guys, get your chats in if you'd like. We're going to go for a little bit longer. Young lady, stop being so stubborn. You're entering prime baby making age. Find a good man, start having kids, and experience your best life. Seriously, dying barren is a wasted life. Do you want to respond to GR Gracie?
What if I'm infertile? Then what am I supposed to seek out? Adoption? Yeah.
Are
Sure.
you?
Okay.
Or
But
wait-
I'm just curious, like,
or a widowed man, or any number of different ways that you would end up in a mother role.